Welcome to the Unblocked creators. I am Jesse James Carver, the Unblocked Carver, and today I'm hosting David Morin, a poet and death doula and prison rehabilitation facilitator. He helps people reunite with their humanity. He's the author of Milkweed, his debut poetry book, which is now available as an ebook and soon to be a physical book. It's born from addiction, self-abandonment, and spiritual reckoning. As the guide of his Year to Live cohort, David creates spaces where grief and mortality become portals to authentic living. His public speaking blends poetry with presence, redefining how we care for ourselves and each other when life breaks us open. His work invites us to reclaim our full humanity in the face of incarceration, grief, loss, and transition. Check out the links in the description to see his Instagram, where you can hear more of his poetry, a link to his shop where you can check out his book, which is available now as an ebook, as well as a free resource, his Voice Reclamation Guide, a poetic workbook for helping you reclaim the voice that you buried to survive. Before we begin, a quick note on the Creative Wayfinder. Round 2 begins on August 25th. This year, 2025, it's an 8-week-long initiation for creators, artists of all kinds, to reconnect to the source of your creative power, stop procrastinating and half-assing your creative dreams. And I am digging deep to unlock the secrets to unlimited motivation, generative drive, and agency in your life. I've spent well over a decade now studying depth psychology and transformational work of various kinds, and we're going to go deep into some shadow work. We're going to create a personal motivation generator so that you can actually follow through on higher purpose goals in your life while you're still alive. Without further ado, let's welcome David Morin. Okay, it's good to be here with you, David.
Yes, sir. Thanks so much for having me here today.
Thanks for joining me. So, we're alive right now. This is pretty amazing.
Thankfully.
Pretty strange. So, there's lots to dive into with you. You are a poet and a death doula. Could you tell me, have you always been a poet?
You know, I have been a poet my entire life. It just took me about 29 and a half years to figure it out. And it's kind of funny because when I updated a lot of my friends, I'm like, oh, I'm a poet now. Almost the entire consensus was almost always, oh yeah, that sounds right. That makes sense. It's like, well, what the fuck were you guys going to tell me that?
We were just waiting for you to notice.
Yeah, so I wrote my first poem about 4 years ago. March 2021, and I've been a new person since.
Wow. And how did you find out?
I found out initially when I watched this poetry special online on Amazon Prime by a poet named NQ. He has a 1-hour one-man poetry special. And when I watched it like at midnight, and I was like kind of shaking after. I was like, what the heck did I just watch? And I watched it a second time, and I was staring at the wall until like 5 a.m, wondering what was going on with me, because I just never felt anything like that before. And so I just started consuming more poetry. I started writing as much as I could. And then about a few months later, that was March 21, in June 2021, I did a darkness meditation retreat, and it was for 3 days, and I did a Who Am I meditation during that time in there, and I would just kind of be in there and say, who am I, and as they teach us, when you meditate, the common teaching is when a thought comes, just dismiss it and carry on. And every time I said, who am I would have poems come to my mind. and like rhymes and lines, and I just couldn't stop it. So I'd say, "Who am I?" And I'd be like, "Get the hell out of here!" Like, who am I? Until enough times it happened, I just snapped, and I was like, "Oh shit, I'm a poet." And like when I said it out loud, the force, there was a force that just pushed me back, and I fell to the ground, and I just started laughing and crying. And it was like, oh, it felt like just a huge homecoming. It felt like a baptism. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And I was like, this is what I came here for. I was like, I'm a poet. And it felt like I just returned to a long lost version of myself.
Amazing. So you discovered that in a darkness retreat, which is probably something that not everyone has heard of, and not everyone has heard about maybe why you would do such a thing. If you could share that.
Yeah, very good point. A darkness meditation retreat is where you are in a pitch black room. There is no light whatsoever. You have a bed, there's water, there's a bathroom, there's a shower. They bring you food in a way that doesn't disturb the darkness. And that's what you do. I just basically, my intuition led me there. I didn't know why I had to go there, but I've been developing a very strong relationship to my intuition, and I listen to it when it tells me to do something. And I had felt so pulled to the darkness retreat. Just thinking about it was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. I was looking for a regular meditation retreat, and I wanted to go to Mexico to connect to my roots. And that's when I saw darkness. I was like, I have no idea what it is, but just alarms went on in my head, like, we are going there. It's like, all right, let's go. And I went, like I said, I wanted to kind of get in touch more with my roots. In some ways, I was always afraid of the dark, so it was a way to confront my biggest fear. And other than that, I was just trusting that there was something bigger in store for me. So I was like, let's go. And that's exactly what I got. As soon as I had that welcome home to the poet moment, I just knew in my bones, like, this is what I came here for. I was like, I can end this right now. Like, not my life, the experience.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a heck of a bridge to another topic, but we'll take our time. Since you also describe yourself as a death doula, this is another topic that not everyone knows about. What is it, first off? What's a death doula?
Yeah. A death doula, how I define it and how I've learned to know what it is, it's essentially just someone who helps someone guide. A death doula is someone who guides an individual at the end of their life. It can be in any sense they need. Essentially, what I view my responsibility as a death doula is to meet them where they are, not come with my agenda. Like, this is what you need to do to prepare to death. It's like, no, where are you at? And how can I be a mirror for you to figure this out for yourself? So in a lot of ways, being a death doula means to abandon myself in the most loving way. You know, how can I remove David from this situation, and how can I be a mirror for this person's life? Because I believe we all have our own answers when it comes to death in the afterlife and what to do and how to proceed. We're just not around enough people who can tolerate that kind of discussion. And so we stuff it down. And so most of the time when I do my job right, I don't say a damn thing. It's them going, and it's them finally feeling safe enough to explore all of these hard topics and scary topics about dying, about people they love dying. And like when I'm talking to someone, they'll just keep going. I'm like, I don't know where all this is coming from. It's like, that's the point. Just keep going. Yeah. But on the flip side of it, so there's like the death education side where you can help people and be at bedside with them, things like that. So that death education piece is certainly one side of being a death doula. What I have taken to heart mostly is how I like to say I'm an ambassador of death in a lot of ways. I say that in the lens of like death being a teacher, and me doing the darkness retreat, learning about mortality, doing the year to live, which is something else you might ask me about later. But these are all different ways that I have been a student of death. And I've sat in the front row and haven't been afraid to be the only person in that class. And so now it's like I have all these notes, and it's like, yo, we're all living life wrong, because like death is the ultimate teacher of life, and no one's taking this class, and we're all just living out here blindfolded. And so I feel like in that way I have a very sincere reverence for it. And a good example of why I think it's a way of life in that way is I was just house sitting in Hawaii for a couple of weeks. I was like very blessed to be house sitting there, right? And I'm leaving my friend's house and I'm driving to the airport, and just the moment creeped in my head as I've been conditioning myself to. It's like, what if you died tonight? What if you died on the plane tonight? What if you didn't make it home? What if these were my last days? And it's like, fuck. And it's like, this was an amazing time. I was like, I just started dating someone, and we just spent, even though she didn't come with me, we spent like these 2 weeks like getting to know each other more intimately with distance, you know? And I was like, fuck this. And like, she's my girlfriend now, you know? And so it's like, if this were the case, like I have to let her know that even though it's been a few months, she's brought so much joy into my life. And that like one of my favorite parts of being in Hawaii is like getting to know her even though we were apart. And just like allowing myself to tear up from all of that gratitude. And so it just makes life so much fuller. And it helps to not only focus on the negative, but to like, I think ultimately what death does is it helps reframe all the negative.
Yeah, it adds a lot of perspective considering time passing. So the year to live, it's the name of the podcast you've begun, but it also refers to sort of an exercise, or how would you like to describe that?
Yeah, a year to live, I describe it as a social experiment. Or I guess people like challenges. It's a year-long challenge, but it's originally a book by Stephen Levine, who was a meditation instructor and a powerful meditation teacher, and also a death doula. But the premise is, how might you live this next year if you found out you only had 1 year left? And you know, there's a lot of YOLO going around these days, but there's there's a separate energy that comes in when you assign yourself a death date 1 year into the future. And I'm learning more and more that the mind really does not know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And so when you tell yourself, hey, I'm dying in 1 year from today, there's a lot of panic that creeps in. A lot of shit stirs up. And basically everything that comes up in that moment is everything we've been avoiding our entire life. And so it's really 1 year to sit with yourself in the most uncomfortable, intimate, beautiful, heart-opening ways. Ego-destroying ways.
Yeah. Well, I'm really compelled by the idea because it's always been a topic that I personally have felt close to. From a very young age, I felt very hyper-aware that time is going by, I'm aging, and that this ends. And like you, I grew up with certain religious beliefs, a little different, like kind of just a sort of lukewarm Protestantism, I would say. But I was taught in Sunday school that there would be these pearly gates and golden instruments and all the beautiful things, and all the people I've ever loved will be there, or some of them won't. That's another topic. But all of those of us who believe will be there. And I was pretty young when I kind of doubted that. And even when I believed it, I actually found it kind of scary, to be honest with you. It was like a place where nothing changed forever in a way, and forever felt kind of scary. But when those beliefs were left behind, and I sort of became more of a materialist atheist, I would say, for quite a while. Early teenage years, even maybe like 12, 13. Then I sort of felt disassociated from the sort of grief involved in life and death, but not for long. And overall, since then, when I think about it, I feel grief around it. If I think about people I love, knowing if I live quite a while, then I will lose most of them at some point in my life. And then sometimes I lay down at bedtime and I feel my body as this mortal thing.
Mm.
And I know that I don't know when it will stop living. And I think I'm a little bit afraid, but it's sort of this sadness that I feel like I have so much living to do. And yet, at the same time, I am so grateful for this life and what it's been so far. So when I know that it could end tomorrow or a year from now, it's profoundly beautiful at the same time that I feel like it's sad. So I've always felt close to it. So when I heard you talk about the year to live idea, I thought, wow, that's a way to put it in perspective. You know, not only one day will it end, but if I imagined only 364 days remaining, that's not that many. So if, David, for a minute, if we could imagine, if you could sit with me and imagine that I found out that news, that I had 1 year left. Man, that's not much time. There's so much I want to do with that time. And I like what you said about how it tends to be that someone in that position just starts to talk to you and you just start to listen, because feeling into that right now, I feel like there's nothing more I could ask of you. Uh, you know, for myself, if I have a year to live, I just want to get perspective on what to do with it. And I know that you can't tell me what I should do with it. So, what a beautiful thing to help someone bring that awareness out, especially when maybe they even have less than a year. And so you've experienced that. Um,
Yeah.
so, what's it like experiencing that kind of presence with someone who really doesn't have much time, and then also experiencing their time running out?
Mm. I would love to answer that question, but would you like me to sit with you while you contemplate your own potential year to live a little while longer?
Let's give it a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, it felt very
I
tender.
dodge it. I want to run from it.
I'm not doing. I'm not letting you do that, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
um.
Because I know it could be a long time. I might live a long life, but I might not. And yeah, it freaks me out when I feel viscerally aware in my body that something could just stop working or something could happen and I don't know what's next.
Can I offer like an observation or a reframe?
Yes, please.
All the things that you've mentioned being afraid of, none of those things are actually death. It's everything you tell yourself life should be.
Yeah, that's true. So that makes me think of a conversation I just had with a friend who actually he was a counselor in my high school days, but 14 or so years later, 12 years later, we're still friends. And he taught me a lot about surrender and letting go. And he would say I taught him a lot, but, uh, you know, he's 20 years older than I am and maybe 30. And to him, it was very funny to be working in the school system as someone who was so not willing to live in the socially conditioned sort of landscape of all these rules about how you're supposed to live and what life is supposed to be. So he really helped affirm for me early on that at least what people tell you and what you are conditioned to think about what life should be, it doesn't have to be what you impose on yourself. And so it's this sort of razor's edge where I feel some amount of peace with the mystery of it all and allowing life to be what it is and trying to step out of that frame where we sort of ignore this topic. Mm-hmm. And people almost, it's almost like a lot of us think we're immortal in this life because we just don't consider how time passes. But you're right. It's when I say I have so much living to do still, that's me saying, this is what I think it should be. And it just is what it is. So it could be that it ends in a year, and whatever happens, that's my life.
Exactly.
That's the fullness of my life. And I don't know, when I die, I tend to think that the energy of consciousness probably continues in some way, but I don't really have any way to know that. So it could be the way I think of myself for sure is gone. My Jesse personality will come to an end. So if I am going to be totally non-existent, there's nothing to fear about that, because there won't be an experience of non-existence. But it still makes me... It's like I'm just annoyed. I'm annoyed by it.
that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, a lot of the things that I'm hearing you mention are open loops. You know, it's like these are all unknowns, and I have to be able to know I can close them. Right? But what I learned, death, all it is the ultimate unknown. Because we can have our beliefs, we can have our convictions. Those make us feel better. But we don't know for sure. I have all my beliefs right now about what I think is going to happen, and they make me feel all rosy and, you know, and like sunshine and make life easier. But at the end of the day, I don't fucking know if those are true. But like, even then, it's like, that's what a belief should be. It should help you inform how you show up in the now. And so what dying is, it's equal as much as letting go. So it's what do I want to cling to, and what am I willing to release? And those are hard. Those are very hard. The only peace that you'll find there is peace of knowing you'll never know. And that's scary. That's a place people don't want to feel into and acknowledge and admit. Like, you know, I can say with an example for me, for my year to live, one of my biggest priorities in the beginning was to finish my book. I need to finish my poetry book. I need to finish this damn book. But I fell into prison rehabilitation work, and it just rocked my world, and I loved it so much. And I loved it so much that that poetry fell by the wayside. And it was about 6 months, less than 6 months left before I died. It's like, bro, what the fuck's up with this book? This was a priority, you know? And I had to choose. I was like, I have 6 months left. Do I want this constant nagging at me of doing something that I haven't done? Or am I ready to release it? Mm. And I just came to that decision. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Right now, life is richer living in the now with these men and with this job. I don't care about the poetry book right now. And I let it go. And like the death doula in me gave that back to me. It's like, dude, do you know what you're saying right now? Like, this is what gave you your life. And if you die, you're not going to have anything to give to anyone. You're going to leave everything on your Google Docs and hope that your family finds your passwords and figures it out on their own.
Yeah.
And I had to accept all of those open loops. It's like, yeah, I don't care. Whatever.
Oh.
And I released it.
Yeah. So have you found then that's important with other goals and creative work to sort of allow attachment to completion to die in a way?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest gifts of death. If we didn't have death, we would have time to do everything we wanted. But death forces us to choose. And it's like, yeah, your mind wants to do all of these things, but your body can only choose a few, bro. Like, get it together. And even in the book, Stephen Levine, he talks about, we bet on death. You know, if you could live for an eternity, and those odds if you can live for an eternity, and those odds are also including the possibility of having Alzheimer's for 400 years, would you take it or would you want to die? You know? And so, of course, and what was the most humbling thing for me, and I didn't even learn this during A Year to Live, I just learned it now, almost a couple years later. But all of those things that you feel like you have to do are part of the attachment to your identity. Those are attached to parts of your identity that you've convinced yourself you are. And it's like, well, I'm not any of those things. I'm something underneath all of those. These are all just masks. And what death does is it just helps release one mask at a time.
I love that. It makes me feel it's like my mind almost says, well, then just do nothing because nothing matters. And then my heart says, well, go play then.
Mm-hmm.
Play with it. Like, pursue a goal, but play towards it in a sort of release, in a release mode. Maybe that also brings us a bit into poetry, because poetry, I've always been interested in language, how fascinating it is that somehow we opposable thumb animals can get such abstract ideas across with vibrations. And it's so incredible. And what imbues everyday language with meaning might be originating in metaphor. And so poetry seems to me something that re-alivens communication in a way, and it's so multi-layered. And look at how spontaneous the process is that brings poetic insight. So could you maybe share with me a bit about what poetry is to you and how it comes to you and how you go about reciting or improvising or writing poetry?
Absolutely. So if I'm being frank, I'd say my relationship to poetry had very big distinctions in the first 2 years of writing and the last 2 years of writing. And so I actually don't write the way I used to these days. I kind of mostly write when I'm inspired. At first, when I first discovered I was a poet, I was writing like crazy. In those first 2 years, I wrote over 1,000 poems. I was just writing like my life depended on it. And I was inspired by everything. I was inspired by literally everything. And so ultimately, I learned that I write better when I write by hand. Because when I would write on the computer, I realized very quickly that was a way of me getting in the way of the muse. Because I can delete easily, I can rewrite, I can scrap the whole thing in like 2 seconds. You know, when you write by hand, I let the muse in and I let it take over a line at a time. And I'm writing a line not knowing where the next line's going, but it's like, I'm in this line. I'm in this line. Now I'm in the next line. Now I'm on the next line. And then by the time I'm done, I'm like, holy shit, this is an amazing poem. Like, I didn't even write this. What is going on? And so it very much is a dance with God. It's a dance with the divine. And at that point, it was just beautiful. It was bringing me to life, one poem at a time. You know, I had seen a tarot card reader about 2 years after I started writing. And she's like, do you have a creative expression that you like to do? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm a poet. I write so much poetry. And she's like, keep doing that. That's like, I can see how that's healed you. She's like, I want you to know every poem you receive is literally light. You are receiving light and transmuting it one light at a time. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And so like, it had nothing to do about writing the best poems. It had nothing to do with impressing people. It had everything to do with receiving truth, accepting it, and not turning it into something that it has to be, allowing it to be what it is. And it's funny putting that together. Of course, that would be the best prerequisite for death.
Yeah.
You know, but did I answer your question?
Definitely. Yeah. I love that about being in the line that you're writing now and not knowing what the next line is. And it's so funny because while talking, I remembered that just yesterday, and this ties this all together, right? Yesterday I was out on a walk and I just sort of started singing whatever lines were coming to me. And I sort of sometimes practice this, like, can I just allow, because I certainly don't feel like a songwriter, although I've always kind of had some poetic tendencies. And I started singing. I was singing about, I said, I don't want to dwell in a box. I don't want to live in an urn. Please let me become a tree when it's time I take my turn.
Mm.
And so I got thinking about that whole thing, which is a completely other topic, which I won't go into now. But it is interesting to me how that's like a whole industry, an expensive industry even, how the bodies are dealt with when we die.
Oh, gosh, yes. Yeah, we won't go there right now.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, but
yes, very sad.
another thing to dive into some other time. I have interest in thinking about that. It's almost like a big conspiracy, but
Well, I can add briefly on that. Was one of your lines, I don't want to be in an urn?
Yeah.
So there's actually a company in Washington State. I think they're called Recompose. I could be wrong. I forgot the name. But what they do is they recompose bodies, corpses, after the humans die.
Yeah.
They create these temperature-controlled pods, and they layer it with a bunch of compostable material. They lay the body in that's wrapped in a shroud, biodegradable, and then they sandwich the body with all this compostable material. It's temperature regulated, and every few days or so they'll churn it and rotate it all. After 30 to 40 days, they have a truck bed's worth of soil that your body has turned into. And you can just give away soil to people. So
okay, I love that.
Plan on being in Washington.
Yes, I'll have to get dual citizenship maybe. Since I'm up in Canada.
Oh, but, that's right.
Here's my public statement. Let it be known. I don't want to burden anybody. Do what you have to do. But if I die, please try to do that with me. Try to let me become a tree. And I wrote on that poem, please compost my body, let my spirit roam free. Let me rot in the ground, let the mushrooms eat my heart. And I promise I won't make a sound. And I titled it Compost My Body. So
wow,
it's nice to know about that.
And the fact that you remember it already.
Well, I brought it up on my other screen.
Oh, okay.
I could have got away with it.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really great. Yeah,
you know.
learning to be present and be inspired to live in the moment and dancing with God. It's
Yeah.
a
And
beautiful way to put it.
by that same metaphor, like my life is one poem, and I'm trusting the line I'm in right now. And I'm trusting that if I see this line to the end of this line, the next one will reveal itself.
Yeah, amazing. So what else? You said Stephen Levine was also a meditation teacher. Um, is meditation big for you outside of that darkness retreat?
Um, it's becoming bigger for me. You know, when I did the darkness retreat, I didn't have a steady meditation practice. I didn't have. I had a semi consistent yoga practice, but it was all guided on YouTube, and so I was kind of losing my mind. I romanticized it, but it was hard. Like outside of just sleeping, you sleep a lot. Your body just becomes, I guess, more nocturnal in the dark. It like just wants to rest, and it's in the womb kind of thing. And but yeah, I didn't have a steady meditation practice, and so a few years later now, it's something I've been trying to be more consistent with. Um, I have gotten a lot more into visualization and into kind of manifestation type of thing, which has been a powerful tool, but it's not the same as meditating for the sake of meditating. And so I'm trying to incorporate that a little bit more. But long story short, no, I don't have a consistent practice, but I'm recommitting to meditating for 25 minutes first thing in the morning just to quiet the mind down. You know, it's easy. Speaking of attachment earlier, it's so easy to forget when you lose control of your mind. And it's so easy to believe your mind when it tells you it's under control. And it's like, no, no,
Mm.
no. None of this is real. None of this is real. And even today, I meditated for the first time again in a while, for 25 minutes. And I think I had like an actual just focusing on the breath for like 4 of those minutes. You know,
Hmm.
and so
Nice.
just really listening and getting more into it. So no, I don't have a steady practice, but it's something I'm cultivating.
So what about working with inmates? What's rehabilitation in the prisons all about?
Uh, yeah, so I work with incarcerated individuals, how we like to say it, and I started there with poetry. Actually, I met a friend of mine who was formerly incarcerated, and I joined him to go share some poetry with the guys, and I learned that there's no more potent space, at least for men, there's no more potent space than to be around other men who are accountable to themselves, other men who are committed to their healing, other men who are in complete ownership of their story, of the consequences of their actions, and are committed to being the best person they can be today, the best husband, the best son, the best father, the best grandson. And at the end of the day, it's like, what more do we want out of someone who's done wrong, you know? And being in that space made me realize like these are the most embodied men I've ever met. They're not running from anything. They're standing in the fire of who they were. They're honoring their victims, and they are trying so desperately to be the best person they can. Even people who have life without parole, for all they know, they could die in prison. They have 40 years
Yeah.
left. Like, I don't know. Let's talk about mind games. I don't know what the hell that's like to find your peace with those kind of consequences. You know what I
It's
mean?
intense.
Yeah. And so I started just volunteering. I went like every month or so to this group that dealt with. Um, they talk a lot about ancestral generational trauma and things like that. And that was a nonprofit called Rehabilitation. And one of the months, one of the students was like, "Hey, you'd be a great facilitator for this other class I'm taking. It's called Defy Ventures." I was like, "Huh, let me check it out." They were hiring part time. Turns out they teach business and entrepreneurship as a way to healing. Um, there's so many sanctions that incarcerated people face when they leave prison. I believe in America, it's over 40,000 sanctions. So whether
What does
they
that
have,
mean?
there's like 40,000 limits on what they can do with their freedom once they get it. Like where they can
Oh,
live,
wow.
like what jobs they can get, what they have access to. It, for all intents and purposes, it's still a life sentence, even if they get out. And so we teach them that entrepreneurship is the way to control their destiny. And when you teach them entrepreneurship, as you know, there's so many self-limiting beliefs that come up. It really is the ultimate healing journey. And
Yeah.
so it's like, hey, if you want to have a business, like it's the best tool for them, because it's like, okay, what do you like to do? What are your skills? What do you don't like doing? It's basic self-awareness. It's like, what could you do if you get paid for? What do you love doing? There's also, learning a lot about how to handle conflict. You want customers to come back. You can't handle them the way you do here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Learning about
Mm.
competition, empathy, learning about your target audience. Who can you help the most with your solution? What is it like in their life for a day? And just getting them outside of their head. And it's essentially just humanizing them little by little. And we have volunteers come in where they give them feedback on their resumes, where they listen to their business pitch at the end. It's kind of like Shark Tank style. And it's just, it allows them to be human again. And so in addition to
Yeah.
that, I also teach poetry in prison. And I have 2 classes that I teach. And I'm just super blessed that I'm just doing the work that's been the most meaningful to me ever in my life. And I'm like getting paid for it full time. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, even though it's not what I was hired to do or my job title, I'm still very much a death doula in those rooms. All these men they're shedding the old versions of themselves. And so to be able to narrate those things for them is very helpful. And they face a lot of death and grief in prison as well. And, my very first day teaching, I'll say the short story. My very first day of teaching on my own, without my supervisor coming in with me, I have like a sponsor that's a staff from the prison who joins us. So it's me and her, and I'm the one who facilitates the whole time. And she's like, well, David, I have some good news and I have some bad news. I was like, oh, shoot, my day one? All right, like, give me the bad news first. She's like, one of your students overdosed and he died this morning. I was like, oh, fuck, okay. Like, what about the good news? The textbooks are cleared. So we can hand out the new textbooks today.
Hooray.
Yeah, right?
Wow.
And I was like,
Oh.
damn. And so I go in the class, and right away I was like, I'm not a facilitator today. I'm a death doula today. And
Mm-hmm.
we start class, and I was like, hey, I just want to give you guys a moment of silence for the person that just passed. I know I met him last time I was here, but I don't remember who he was. That was my first time here. I'm still learning all you guys' names, and I'm really sorry that happened. We gave a moment of silence. I let anyone say some words for him if they wanted. And it was very awkward for them. You could tell they have not been in that kind of space before. But after one of the guys spoke up, and he's like, hey, that was really cool of you to do. You didn't have to do that. I was like, I know. But like, I did have to. At the same time, I did have to do that.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
it was just acknowledging the pain. They're surrounded by death. That overdose happens all the time. And it's just another thing that happens. But to allow them to have a moment to be like, nah, this dude, we've been sharing space with this dude for months. And he fucking died. He escaped this place.
Yeah.
And like there's so many different layered nuances there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so even though I'm not officially like a death doula or anything, I feel like being a death doula is just inherent to everything else I do in life now.
That's a pretty incredible experience and work to be so close with people who society had to, push out of their awareness in some sense,
Yeah.
uh, and mostly not think about. But those people are still living their lives in there. And it's interesting, you said they're some of the most embodied men that you've known. That must mean you also learn a lot from them.
So much, man. I have learned so much from them about actual like about actually living against insurmountable odds, about how you choose to show up in spite of that, about how like ultimately it's service. The people who are happiest are the ones who give their time to other people and help others heal. You know, in one of the groups I was in, there's a man in there. He's probably in his 40s, early 50s, and he's a mentor to all the youth in there. And he's gotten denied many times for him to have his sentence commutated, which means to turn from to a life without parole into a possibility to leave. And he keeps getting denied. And so he's like, I've come to terms that even if I die in here, I am living in my purpose today because I'm still here showing up for all of the young men in this room so that they can change and they can have a chance to go home. And like ultimate surrender and service, you know? And it's like, damn, like I have a lot to learn still. And they've taught me so much patience, so much grace. They've showed me a lot of love. You know what I mean? And yeah, I'm almost in tears just almost thinking about like a lot of what I've learned the last couple of years. And of course, they're just snapshots that come into my head. But like ultimately what I learned is they want to be human. That's all they want. They want to be human, and being in a place that is designed to take the human out of you takes a toll. I don't know what that toll is. I can witness it. I've never experienced it. And I try to remind myself that a lot. And I tell them too. It's like, yo, I only see y'all like 4 hours. I have many classes, but it's like, I only see you guys like 4 hours a week. Like, I only know who you show up as today. Some of you guys might be faking it. You're doing a good job. Some of you might be as authentic as hell. But like these 4 hours are your chance to show up as somebody new. You know, like you don't have to bring who you are out there in here. And yeah, man.
One of my favorite films has always been The Shawshank Redemption. So all kinds of lines come to mind. And Andy Dufresne's character arc and his finding freedom, but even before he escapes through his tunnel. You know, it took him 6 years of carving out that tunnel and then crawling through like 150 meters of shit and getting his freedom and going and living in Mexico. But meanwhile, the friendships that are formed, and you know, everyone jokes, everyone in here is innocent, but everyone knows that most of them are in there for some reason. And then any of us who have not been incarcerated have made mistakes in life, to varying degrees, that we have to deal with, and whether there's consequences or whether it's just feelings of regret. So I just can imagine that that's like the heat of the furnace, being in there, learning from that environment.
Yeah, it's honestly a space where I've never felt more alive. It's soul enriching for sure. I wish I knew how to describe it better. You know, I've been in this space for 2 years now, and I've barely been able to write about it. And I was like, I don't think the time for writing about it's right now. I got to be in it, and then maybe if I change course down the road, that'll be the time where I have the space to look back and reflect and put it into words.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of poetry there. I can imagine you helping, probably in this conversation already, but in general, people who might feel imprisoned one way or another in life.
Yeah. And I'll add that, like, I do tell that to my students many times, that at least the men who are like doing the work and the ones who I say like are the most embodied, I'll remind them all the time, like, you guys are more free than 99% of the people outside. Like, I know that's very hard for you to like comprehend, but like the sense of peace that you have, you earn that. I was like, people outside are terrified of that.
Yeah. So is that what freedom would mostly mean to you, is peace?
I think I think so. Inner peace, like ultimate freedom, is not letting someone dictate how you feel in your state of mind. Like your outside can for sure have limits. You can be imprisoned. You can be in all sorts of awful situations and circumstances. And I'm not here to say that I've been through it all and have my peace, but there are people who have like left as guides. You know, Nelson Mandela, what an example of peace and of forgiveness. And there's a quick story in the book. I don't know if everyone here has read it, but the guards tell him that he needs to dig his grave. And so he is digging what he is envisioning being his grave, what he assumes he's going to get shot in once he finishes. And he stays in there and he digs it. He stays present. The guards are peeing on him while he's digging in it. And he's just kind of humiliated the whole time. He finishes it. Obviously, he didn't die. They let him live. But to go through that kind of experience, and when he became president, he invited those guards. He sent a limo to those guards so that they can attend his inauguration. And it's like, who does that? Who does that? And so I aspire to have that sense of grace. And I think that's ultimately what these men have taught me.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing about all that. That's a world that just isn't thought about much and isn't talked about much, as most of these topics are. So it's a beautiful role that you play, bridging a world that's not talked about to people who can benefit from contemplating it.
Absolutely. Just as I said earlier, I'm a student of death. I'm also a student of humanity and a student of poetry. And I'm just here trying to share some notes.
Yeah. Is there anything, and no pressure, but do you feel inspired to maybe share any poetry?
Yeah, I have one on my mind that came to mind a little bit earlier and might as well share it.
That'd be wonderful.
Thank you, man. You mind if we take a quick breath here before the poem?
Let's do it.
I've been thinking about purpose, about life, and how to be of service. I've spent decades searching, but finally, my passion is burning. These rhymes and lines ignite it. Even if I tried, I couldn't fight it. I've always counted syllables in my head. Syllables in my head. As a child, I read lyrics for hours in bed, yet never once did I consider, hey, maybe I can write my own shit instead. I didn't think I was worthy of being remembered after I was dead. You see, I had eyes that loved to seek, but a voice that couldn't speak because my silence refused to listen to a heart that so desperately tried to glisten. So I spent years in between the smiles. In between the traveling and the miles, I'd go anywhere and be with anyone, so I'd never be alone. But loving everywhere and everyone but me never felt like home. I got so tired of carrying everyone's pain except my own, so I drew a line and I traded my quicksand for a stone. I returned to the darkness, infinity's most ancient throne. I asked it who I was. It said, "You're a poet. Now go back home." And now I'm learning what it means to be a poet. Life plants in me a seed and trusts me to grow it, but I only receive from the divine because I believe I can show it. Our world's being ripped apart, but I know we can sew it. We can pick up the pieces and mend them together, fill in the cracks with hope, and embrace any weather. I pray rain pours blessings over all the land. Please flood our fears and ground them into sand so we can all grab our pain just to watch it fall through our fingers. To let it all go and not let it linger. We'd be one with the ocean and all that has drowned, getting lost in our truth yet never needing to be found. Your pain remembers you too. But it's waiting to know it's one with you. You don't have to avoid it or destroy it. The point is to transform it. Turn it into something new. Let it be the most beautiful part of you. If I could help everyone write a poem, I would. I'd open their eyes that they'd see they could, but I don't want them to feel like they should. If writing's not for them, that's all good. Poetry is one of infinite ways to express all the truth and desire buried behind your chest. You were born with a voice. How you use it is the ultimate choice. You are capable of wonders you'll never conceive. Inside your expression is the magic to receive. So dive into your hurt and get in touch with your art, because if we all feel our truth, well then together we can heal every heart. May your hurt be the soil for a selfless love. May you grant passage to your tears to flood your fears in the hidden corners of your spirit far and near. May you greet your own darkness. May you dine with it. May you sit and cry and sleep and sing with it. May you meet yourself in it and watch you grow. May you allow your heart to shine, to speak it and mean it, to show it and send it with all that you have, even when it hurts. May it be enough. And when it isn't, may you still walk away smiling and with love. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
That is powerful. Beautiful. And answers any other questions I could ask you today.
I'd love to ask. I saw you having an experience there.
Yeah, that speaks to me.
What's resonating with you right now?
What resonates is that while I'm here, I want to pour it all out and give every gift I have to give, and free the voice that I have been gifted with
Hmm.
to be given away and to be expressed and wow. I'm pretty speechless. I'm excited to share that. I'm excited to share that with people. And I don't want to take away from anything
Yeah.
listeners just got from that.
Mm.
So
Fair enough.
I'd just like to let that sit with people. I learned a lot having this conversation with you. And I'll keep learning from it. But I honestly mean it. You know, I might have some more notes I could scavenge through and think of more questions for you. But we covered a lot of really profound stuff, and you helped to make things that could be very heavy topics for people into something I think a little lighter. And it's very healing. So
Thank you. That's exactly what I aim to do. Or it's exactly what I aim to be used to do.
Well, I'm really glad that despite us only having had one real conversation before this, you were willing to come on my podcast and help create what it's becoming. So, really, David, thank you so much, and I think this is a great place to close this one up. But I'll always look forward to connecting with you further and seeing where your journey takes you and continuing to learn in this life with you while we're alive.
Thank you so much, Jesse, and thank you for using your voice to create this podcast.
And thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you had a great time. Hope it was of value. Remember to check out the links in the description to take a look at David's book, which is now available as an ebook, Milkweed, and also his free voice reclamation guide to rediscover the voice that surviving in life led you to bury. Also, my initiation for artists, The Creative Wayfinder, begins on August 25th. We're looking to fill 10 seats this time. Last time we had 8 people for this 8-week journey. Round 2, I've been working hard to polish it up and make it even more impactful. So check out the link for that in the description to read the testimonials from past participants. Thank you very much, and I hope you join us for the next episode.